J-Bone here with my dog Millie, and we are ready to discuss the biggest stories and takeaways from the 2026 F1 Chinese Grand Prix race week that was chock full of on-track and off-track action. Let's dive in, folks. J-Bone and Millie. To kick things off, the F1 Chinese Grand Prix podium was a movie. For starters, you had Mercedes race winner Kimi Antonelli atop it, who already made history on Saturday by becoming F1's youngest ever pole sitter before making even more history on Sunday by becoming just the 116th Formula One Grand Prix winner ever in the sport's 75-year history, as well as becoming the second youngest F1 race winner ever behind just Max Verstappen. Seeing the pure elation on Kimi's face after accomplishing one of his life's dreams was such a sports feel-good moment, as was watching Lance Stroll mopeding away from the circuit during the race after his car broke down. Additionally, Lewis Hamilton finished on the podium in P3 to achieve his first podium as a Ferrari driver, as well as his first podium since the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix, ending the longest podium drought of his legendary career. For being the driver with more first-place finishes than any F1 driver ever, you could just tell that this third-place finish meant more to Lewis than many of his race wins. George Russell being on the podium too was cool because he's Kimi's current teammate and Lewis's former teammate, but more importantly, sorry George, Peter Bonington was also on the podium, and he is the person who took this already incredible podium over the top. Why? Because Bono, as he's nicknamed, has been the race engineer for all three of the drivers on the podium at one point. He's most famous for being Lewis's old race engineer, he's Kimi's current race engineer, and he was George Russell's race engineer when Russell filled in for Hamilton at the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix. Although don't bring that up to George because I'm sure he wants to forget about that race. Maybe my favorite podium moment was George stepping away and letting Bono get a photo with just Kimi and Lewis, his two most recent full-time drivers. See, George Russell is not all evil despite what all those F1 memes will have you believe, people. Before I move on, if you could take just 3 seconds to leave this YouTube video a like and comment, and then share it with a friend who you watch F1 with, it would massively help out my channel, like seriously, would really help me out. And while I cannot promise this week to respond to every comment left in the first 24 hours like I did last week, because it took me over 5 hours to respond to all of them and my hands still hurt, I will still be responding to a ton of comments left on this video this week, so let me see you comment in the comments. Comment, J-Bone! And as a thank you for commenting, I'll give Millie some cheese. Next up, I have a question for you all. Does anybody else feel really weird watching Max Verstappen struggle in F1 right now? Like, it just feels icky. Like, I feel like I need to take a shower or something. There's a very real argument to be made that Max Verstappen's dominance of Formula One in recent years is the most dominant any singular global athlete has been in any major sport during that time frame. And we've gone from that to watching Max look like just any other F1 driver out there right now. We are 2 Grand Prix and a sprint race into the 2026 F1 season, and not only does Max Verstappen only have 1 points finish, which is itself insane to think about, but he also had a crash in Q1 of Australia qualifying, hasn't qualified higher than P8 yet, and had an absurdly bad Grand Prix race start in China that literally made my jaw drop. I have never seen, nor do I ever hope to see again, Max Verstappen get passed by that many cars at once. Now, before all the Max defenders come at me in the comments, I am very well aware that this is not all Max's fault, okay? Obviously, Red Bull have not given Max a car capable of fighting for a championship currently, because if they had, he'd be fighting for a championship right now because he's Max Verstappen. Additionally, blame also can be placed on the FIA for not listening to Max back in 2023 when he said that these new regulations were going to be awful, which they are. Max is the biggest hater of the new regulations on the entire grid and has not been mincing his words when asked about them. After retiring from the Chinese Grand Prix due to a car issue that is certainly due to the new regulations, Max said, "If someone likes this, then you really don't know what racing is about. It's not fun at all. It's playing Mario Kart. This is not racing." Now, should Max be shouldering some of the blame for not adjusting to his car and or the new regulations? I'm going to say no, so that all the Max defenders don't come at me in the comments. All that being said, while Max certainly will never embrace the new regulations, hopefully Red Bull and he can at least deal with them to the point where he looks like himself again, because I just cannot handle seeing the driver I believe to be the best driver on planet Earth struggle like this. Moving on, we need to talk about McLaren F1 team driver Oscar Piastri, because this is just getting ridiculous. We are now 2 Grand Prix into the 2026 F1 season, and Oscar Piastri, who was the World Drivers' Champion favorite for the majority of last season, has literally not even competed in a single Grand Prix yet. At his home Australian Grand Prix, Oscar shockingly and depressingly crashed on the reconnaissance lap, which rendered his car unable to compete in the Australian Grand Prix. And in China, separate power unit related electrical faults rendered both Oscar and his teammate Lando Norris's McLarens unable to compete in the Chinese Grand Prix, with the pair actually finding out just moments before the race that they wouldn't be in the race. Hilariously, because Oscar did compete in the China sprint race and finished P6, he does have 3 championship points, which is good enough for P12 in the World Drivers' Championship, despite the fact that he literally hasn't started a Grand Prix yet in 2026. Whether that fact is more embarrassing for him and McLaren or for all the drivers behind him in the championship right now is up to you to decide, but any way you look at it, Oscar Piastri does definitely hold the record as the driver with the most championship points to have not started a Grand Prix through 2 F1 race weekends, and that's a record that may never be broken. Next, I have a question for the Ferrari fans of the world. Tifosi, I have to know, do you like what you saw in China from Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, or does it terrify you? For context, much of the TV broadcast for the Chinese Grand Prix was centered around the 2 Ferraris battling each other for the final podium position, with them even making light contact at one point, and afterwards, Leclerc, who lost the battle, said it was fun. On the one hand, if I were a Ferrari fan, I could see how Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc being free to race each other very hard would be awesome, because it would mean I get to see my team's 2 drivers duke it out in a no-holds-barred battle for superiority, with the prize being the final podium position alongside the 2 Mercedes. On the other hand, if I were a Ferrari fan, I could see how Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc being free to race each other very hard would be absolutely terrifying. Why? Because this is Ferrari we're talking about, and Ferrari suffering a double DNF because their drivers took each other out would be the most Ferrari thing since pitting Leclerc behind Sainz in Monaco and then yelling, "Stay out, stay out, stay out!" As a neutral observer who just wants to see good on-track battles, I am living for these intra-Ferrari shenanigans, but if you are a Ferrari fan, I just really want to know your thoughts on the 2 Ferraris battling each other, so let me see them in the comments. Next up, my top driver in Formula 1 right now is not Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri, or even one of the championship-leading Mercedes drivers. That is because my top driver in F1 is Haas F1 team driver Olly Bearman. Here's why. Take a look at the current World Constructors' Championship standings, okay? Haas F1 team, a lower budget midfield team that finished last season in 8th place out of 10 teams, are currently in 4th place out of 11 teams through the first 2 race weekends of the season. That puts them ahead of F1 stalwart Red Bull, aka the team of Max Verstappen. Never heard of him? But that's not all. What is all is that Olly Bearman has scored all of Haas's 17 points this season, while his veteran teammate Esteban Ocon is out there repeatedly scoring 0 points and getting penalties for ramming into people. Yes, that means Olly Bearman by himself has more points than both Red Bull drivers combined through the first 2 race weekends, words I truly never thought I would be saying. With results of P7 in Australia, P8 in the China Sprint, and P5 in the Chinese Grand Prix, Bearman is also the only driver not on Mercedes nor Ferrari to score points in all 3 racing sessions so far this season. Truly impressive stuff from a driver we will certainly be seeing on a top team in the very near future. Do you think there's a driver out there who's been better than Olly Bearman to start off this F1 season? If so, let me see it in the comments. Now, while you probably heard at least a little about the above stories before this video, here are 3 things you may have missed from the F1 Chinese Grand Prix. First, did you notice the announcer calling race winner Kimi Antonelli by the wrong name during the podium ceremony? Imagine you're Mercedes driver Kimi Antonelli. You've just achieved one of your life's biggest goals by becoming a Formula 1 race winner. You're waiting backstage to hear your name called so that you can go out there and take your rightful place on the top step of the podium, and you're introduced as... I literally can't stop laughing at Kimi's and George's reactions to hearing Kimi Antonelli referred to as Kimi Räikkönen, a driver who retired back in 2021. But hey, there are way worse names to be called than Kimi Räikkönen. An F1 legend and the 2007 F1 World Drivers' Champion. Was this an omen in terms of Antonelli's title chances this season, perhaps? Second, have you seen how absurd the F1 World Constructors' Championship standings look after the Chinese Grand Prix? For starters, at 98 championship points, Mercedes are only 3 points shy of the maximum and have more points than every team minus Ferrari combined. Despite that crazy fact, Ferrari in P2 with 67 points could easily steal the championship lead from Mercedes in Japan still if Mercedes have a really bad weekend. Then you have McLaren in P3 somehow, despite the fact that both their drivers only combined for one Grand Prix start through the first 2 race weekends. After McLaren, you have Haas in P4, which is insane because Haas, Red Bull in P5 are tied on points with their B team V-Carb in P6. What? Alpine are up in P7 with already almost half the points they scored all of last season. Williams are in P9 after finishing last season P5. And maybe most shockingly, Cadillac somehow are not in last place despite them being new. And despite Aston Martin in last place, employing the literal greatest F1 car designer of all time. Finally, did you catch how Alpine driver and Argentinian hero Franco Colapinto finished in the points at P10 in China? After replacing Jack Doohan at Alpine 7 races into last season, Colapinto had failed to earn a single championship point through his first 19 race weekends with the French team. As you may be aware, if you watched Flavio Briatore rip into Colapinto on Drive to Survive. However, Colapinto just ended that streak in China with a P10 Grand Prix result, despite how Esteban Ocon yeeted him into a synchronized, beautiful spin mid-race. Colapinto's teammate Pierre Gasly also finished in the points at an impressive P6 to give Alpine their first double points finish since their surprise double podium at the 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix. When your company is growing fast, order fulfillment can make or break your success. That is why you need ShipStation. ShipStation's intelligence-driven platform offers order management, rate shopping, inventory and returns, warehouse systems, and comprehensive analytics all in one place, saving customers 15 hours per week on fulfillment. With ShipStation, everything you need to manage getting orders to customers is in one place. ShipStation compares rates across all major global carriers, USPS, UPS, and FedEx, including your own discounted rates if you have them, to find you the best shipping option on every order with discounts up to 90% off. ShipStation picks the best carrier, finds you the best rate, prints labels in bulk, and sends tracking updates. It's truly your one-stop shop for shipping, and I can't recommend it enough. As someone who's fulfilled a lot of orders in the past, I used to dread shipping day because shipping was always so annoying and confusing, but with ShipStation, you can basically let your shipping go on autopilot because it's just that easy. Find out why 1 million businesses have trusted ShipStation. Try ShipStation free for 60 days with full access to all features, no credit card needed. Go to ShipStation.com and use code BONE for 60 days for free. 60 days gives you plenty of time to see exactly how much time and money you're saving on every shipment. That's ShipStation.com, code BONE, ShipStation.com, code BONE. Next up, arguably the biggest piece of F1 news to come out of the Chinese Grand Prix race week had nothing to do with the Chinese Grand Prix at all. It's official, both the F1 Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix scheduled to take place in April have been canceled due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East right now. Here's what Formula One said in their announcement post this past Saturday. It has been confirmed today that, after careful evaluations, due to the ongoing situation in the Middle East region, the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will not take place in April. While several alternatives were considered, it was ultimately decided that no substitutions will be made in April. The Formula 2, Formula 3, and F1 Academy rounds will also not take place during their scheduled times. In addition to that, F1 President and CEO Stefano Domenicali said, "While this was a difficult decision to take, it is unfortunately the right one at this stage considering the current situation in the Middle East." And I definitely agree with him there, minus the whole difficult decision part, as I think this surely was a pretty easy decision for them to make, no? Millie, would this have been an easy decision for you?
Nice.
But hey, F1 has gone racing with missiles flying around before, so maybe this decision was difficult for them to make, sadly. While this was very clearly the correct decision to make in the names of safety, logistics, and reading the room, it will have some pretty big impacts on all the affected racing series. In terms of F1, there will now be an impromptu 5-week spring break between Round 3, the Japanese Grand Prix in late March, and Round 6, the Miami Grand Prix in early May. The biggest winner there is very clearly Aston Martin, who can hopefully use that time to, as Christian Horner would say, change their bleeping car so that it's capable of actually finishing a race. In terms of F1 Academy, they won't race again until the Canadian Grand Prix weekend in late May. The biggest impact of the Bahrain and Saudi cancellations, however, will be felt by Formula 2 and Formula 3. Both of those series will not see the track again until the Monaco Grand Prix weekend all the way in June. Yes, folks, that means between the first F2 and F3 races of the season in Australia and the second F2 and F3 races of the season in Monaco, there will be an absurd 3-month break. Of course, none of that actually matters. All that does matter is that the ongoing conflict in the Middle East ends as peacefully and as soon as possible. Finally today, we need to talk about how my 3 bona fide Chinese Grand Prix race predictions ended up and how my dog Millie's 1 race prediction ended up. I entered the Chinese Grand Prix weekend 2 for 3 on the season with my predictions after a hot season start in Australia, and Millie entered it a perfect 1 for 1 with her prediction after an even hotter season start. Now let's see where we stand with another race weekend now in the books. My first Chinese Grand Prix race prediction was that George Russell would win the Chinese Grand Prix, and I got that one wrong. I thought this prediction was a lock after George finished P1 in free practice, the sprint shootout, and the sprint race. However, George then had an issue during Q3 in qualifying that led to Kimi Antonelli snatching pole from him. George had a bad race start that put him on the back foot to start the race, and George had no grip on the hard tires that meant he'd just never be able to catch Kimi. My second prediction was that Lewis Hamilton would finish on the podium at the Chinese Grand Prix, and ding ding, J-Bone got that one right. J-Bone! I knew running back this failed Australian Grand Prix experiment was the move because anyone with eyes and an appendix could see that it was only a matter of time this season before Lewis stood on the podium in red, given his and the Ferrari cars' paces to start the season, and yes, in saying that, I am asserting that all the F1 drivers who have had their appendix removed may not have been able to see this. My third prediction was that Esteban Ocon would finish in the points at the Chinese Grand Prix, and it looked like he was going to when he was running in the points well into the race until this prediction got Esteban Ocon memed to death, and it was literally a 10-second penalty to Ocon. While I went a disappointing 1 for 3 in China to take my total up to 3 for 6 on the season, my dog Millie is now a perfect 2 for 2 because of her prediction that neither Audi would score points came true. And for that, she gets some cheese.
Nice.
This means I now must face the harrowing realization that my dog is better at F1 predictions than I am. Toss me a subscription now and ring that notification bell so that you will get my Japanese Grand Prix preview video next week right when it drops. And while you're doing that, don't forget to leave a like and comment on this video as well. It really helps me out. Special shout out to my top YouTube channel members: Joe Max's number 1 hater Snow, Brian Linton, Wolf Loves Racing, Waffleopicus, Melissa Cruz, Amar Zuber, Logan DeBenz, and David Hey! Mash that join button just below this video to get your name shouted out right there in future videos. Seriously, go do it. And if you want to join 1,000 plus F1 fans in the free to join Formula Bone Discord, you can go do that through the join link in the description. Until next time, folks, J-Bone and Millie. J-Bone!